The last week and a half have been very heavy, and today I want to speak directly to my white friends and family. And that's not to say that this couldn't be helpful to my friends of color, but I want to be clear up front who this is intended for. The murder of George Floyd seems to have been a tipping point, and I'm seeing a lot of people speak out about race relations who I haven't seen speak up before. And as I read these posts and hear what they're saying, I see two things and hear two things: a desire to speak up, and at the same time, still a huge opportunity for learning and growth. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting on my journey around my own white identity development. And I've come to one conclusion, that while I'm certainly not where I want to be, and there's still a lot of growth and understanding that needs to happen within myself, the number one influence on how I've gotten to where I am today is by interacting with people who have different lived experiences than my own. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, ugh, not another white person who says we just need to have more conversations, hear me out. I'm seeing a lot of my friends and family who are indicating that they are truly grappling with race relations for the first time. And it takes me back to a time when I found myself in the place they are right now. For me, and I think for many white folks, one starting place is with conversation, because that's where we start to learn what it is that we can do. What action can we take? But I'm advocating that the conversation doesn't end there. The conversation has to lead to action. And I'm also not saying that we should go to our friends of color and ask them to explain their experiences to us. No, not at all. This is in combination of many things: reading books authored by people of color, listening to podcasts hosted and produced by people of color, watching documentaries and films about the experience of people of color. Go to external sources to educate yourself first, then engage in these conversations with your friends, all of your friends, white and friends of color. But this is where some of you, including myself many years ago, might find an obstacle. You might look at your friends group and go to the same handful of people, or maybe that same single person, every time for these conversations, because maybe your group of friends isn't as diverse as it could be. And this isn't fair. It's not fair to your friends of color to always be the voice for their community. And it's not fair to you to limit the perspective you could learn from. So with this in mind, I want each of you to pull up the contact list in your phone right now. And I want you to go down that entire contact list, including your family members, and identify how many white people are in your contact list versus how many people of color are in your contact list. I did this yesterday with 455 contacts, and it took me about 10 minutes. It doesn't take that much time and can be really confronting. I'll share that when I did this, my contact list broke down to about 67% white and 30% people of color. And my next desire was to know the racial makeup of the US to see where that falls in comparison. Now, according to the 2010 census, which of course we are in the middle of a new census right now, so I'm sure that this will change. And I'm not going to get into all the ways that the census is broken, but nevertheless, according to the 2010 census, 72.4% of the US population is white. For a very, very brief moment, and I mean very brief, I was pleased that the makeup of my own circle mirrored the larger US experience. But then I took things a step further and looked at how my friends of color represented the non-white categories on the US Census. That's where a confrontation happened for me. And that's the work I need to do to keep working towards a more robust experience for myself, more robust understanding so that I can take appropriate action. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're categorizing our friends to put them in boxes and make assumptions about them. I want to be 100% clear about that. And this is not to go through and identify the race or an identity of someone for them. That's part of the conversation you have to have with them. We cannot make assumptions about how our friends identify themselves. This is simply an exercise to help my white friends and family do a gut check of how serious they are in understanding the lived experiences of those who are different from themselves, so that they can take action based on that new understanding. You can take this a step further too and look at the last 20 people that you texted and the last 5 or so, maybe 10 people that you called. And you might be wondering why I chose this way of assessing my own group, my own circle. And I'll share why. Looking at our social media friends isn't a real representation of our connections. We know that there are a lot of people on our friends list on social media who are there, but we don't interact with them in any way at all. If you have someone's phone number, you are more connected with them. If you are texting them, you have a closer relationship with them. And if you are calling them or they're calling you, you have an even more intimate relationship with them. These are most likely the people that you are currently having conversations with about race, if you're having those conversations at all. So, are they representative of a wide variety of perspectives and experiences? I'm not saying that this is the right way or the only way. I'm simply suggesting that it could be one step in many steps that each of us takes to do the work of building a better country, a better world, where Black lives matter, where brown lives matter, where immigrant lives matter and undocumented lives matter, where LGBTQ plus lives matter. I hope this is something you will truly consider as you look towards taking action. You all have a great weekend.